Welcome to the Speak by Design podcast, where we study personal style, message structure, and message strategy so you can become a consistently compelling force. Let's dig in. We are answering the question today, how do I become more assertive? And this only comes up with people who are not talking as much in meetings as their leaders usually want them to. And it's such a nice piece of feedback to be asked to be more assertive. So if you have received this, be so happy that somebody wants to see and hear more from you. That means that you are already someone that is valued and that the invitation is out there to go grab more airtime and become the one that leads the discussion, that leads the problem solving, that leads the functional area. So there's an invitation out there. Do not be offended by this feedback at all. That's wasted time and energy. Now, if you are someone who is assertive and you are so surprised that somebody gave you this feedback, also acknowledge that that was in one meeting. That person saw you and thought you could have been a more visible, bigger presence in that meeting. That's all that means. That does not mean you're not assertive ever. It means that that day on that topic with that audience and that observer, someone thought you could have been bigger, bolder, and more assertive. That's all that means. We can overcorrect on this easily and become aggressive, and we want to make sure that we don't do that. Take this feedback as an opportunity that with that individual, whoever shared this with you, they want you to lead more than you have in the past. Great. That's fantastic. All right, but let's go back to the question. How do you become more assertive? It starts with the mind. And I want to offer some thoughts that you can put in your head to help you organically, naturally, from the inside out, become more assertive. And it's always best to start here because you might realize that there's a thought that you've been carrying around unconsciously that does not serve you. Maybe a belief that you need to be respectful to your elder, or you need to be respectful to the people who are of a higher ranking, title wise or tenure wise, and you don't want to step on your peers' toes. Or it's a more limiting belief, very personally, you believing that you don't have something of value to share. Only you can clean up that mess in your head. There's nobody coming to help you clean up those limiting beliefs. So let's go look at them right now. I'm going to offer the positive first. Here's a great thought for you, is that I just don't have time to be nervous. And when you are making excuses for yourself of, I'm so nervous, can you say, I don't have time for nerves today, and shake it off? Can you say, I don't care what they think. I care what I think. And here's what I think. Many of us are overly sensitive to other people's opinions, and we care too much what they think. Can you remind yourself you don't care? You don't have time to care about what others think because you'll never even know what they think. Many people keep their thoughts inside their heads. And so you'll never get to the truth of what somebody else thinks about you. It's a waste of your energy. Can you come to a more positive state of believing, I am helping so many people with these ideas. With the ideas I share today, I will help many. Here's another great phrase. I know I can do this. I can do this. This is easy. I can do this. I know I can. Here's another one. I have no time for doubts today. There will be no doubts. I'm going all in. I am 100% in belief around what I'm going to share today. Now, the things that we tell ourselves that I notice people telling themselves all the time, and I catch this usually in an initial conversation with someone, is they will say things like, well, extroverts are better at this. I'm an introvert. And they use the title introvert as an excuse to say that they're not going to be good at speaking up. But being introverted just means you don't get energy after speaking up, but it doesn't mean you don't speak up. It just means that when you speak up, you're not as energized as an extrovert would be. So that's not a logical excuse anymore. Let's take that out of our heads. There are people who say speaking to large groups is hard. Large groups are hard. There's no reason we need to believe that large groups are harder than one on one or small groups. There are many cases where one on one could be harder than a large group. So that's not true all the time. That's not absolutely true. Let's take that out of our heads. There's the belief that, oh, I'm going to be selling. Selling is manipulative and it's uh, it's not genuine. No, that's not true either. When you believe that your product or service is the best and is going to solve their problem, how in any way is that manipulating? There's the belief that this is going to be hard. But how do you know it's going to be hard? It could equally be easy. So at least go 50-50 on that belief that it might be harder than expected. It might be easier than expected as well. My personal style doesn't matter. Sometimes people say it shouldn't matter how I talk, it should matter only what I write and do and think. When you hear that voice making that excuse of it shouldn't matter how I talk, it should only matter the substance of what I say, remind yourself that that is you looking for the path of ease. That is your mind wanting to tell you you don't have to change. You can stay comfortable in your authenticity of not wanting to change. But I want you to know that's not true. And you're very judgy yourself on other people's style. We all are. We all notice it. Think about the people you admire for their speaking skills. Steve Jobs is still mentioned most in our surveys when we ask people, who do you admire for their speaking skills? Why is that? Look, think of his Apple launches. What if that had only been a memo we read, or it had been spoken by a robot? It would not have affected us the way it did because it was so human, unique, emphatic, assertive in his belief about what his invention could now do and that it was going to change everything. And it did change everything. Here are 4 beliefs that will immediately make you feel more assertive and make it easier for you to speak up. And these are the 4 beliefs we talk about in the confident mindset. It is caring about your audience, number 1. Second, believing in your expertise, that you know a great deal about this topic. And number 3, that you're fighting to solve a serious problem, that what you're talking about is serious. And then 4th, that you believe you will make progress today. So check those 4 beliefs. Are they in the right spot in your head? Can you go 100% into believing each one of those, all in on those beliefs? When you can, it's a lot easier to speak up. But let me share some other tactical things you can do to come across immediately more assertive, even if those beliefs are not in place yet. But do work on getting those beliefs in place, because then you don't even need to think about these tactical items. They are going to happen naturally. But the first one is when you come into the room, check your posture. Every time you walk through a door frame, see if you can lengthen your spine, puff out your chest a degree more, put a big grin on your face. You're excited for the conversation. Then, as you sit down, look at the people in the room, make good, strong eye contact. Instead of looking at the table or out the window, look at the people in the room. Entice them into conversation, casual conversation, non-work conversation. Get your voice heard before the meeting even starts. That's already you showing up as an assertive person in the room. Then there is thinking about your voice. Can you use more downward intonation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That downward intonation always makes you sound more authoritative. Assertive, can you be the one that initiates the topic, starts the conversation, asks the question, what do we need to cover today? Has anything changed since we last spoke? What's most important in this agenda? What's not on this agenda that we need to cover today? Now, notice those were all questions, but I used downward intonation on all of them. By you being the person to say that at the beginning, even if somebody else is there to lead, if you say, "What are we doing today?" and the person who owns the meeting will answer you briefly, that usually gets the meeting started faster by doing so. It also shows your great desire to have a good meeting. At one of the consulting firms we work with, we tell people, associates and analysts, get your voice heard at least 3 times per 30 minutes. Now, as a new associate and analyst, usually they don't feel as comfortable doing that. That's a stretch goal for them. But if you're doing something in the beginning before the meeting starts, you're asking a clarifying question in the middle, and you're amplifying an idea toward the end, that right there hits your 3 times per 30 minutes in a very natural way. Do not go 30 minutes without speaking. That makes you look invisible in the room. Let's suppose you are joining a meeting with a senior leader with your direct supervisor. I find that's a tricky situation for people because they don't want to step on their supervisor's toes. Before that meeting, ask your supervisor, can I be the first voice? Could I kick this off so that I show you how I kick off the discussion and that I position myself as the person who's going to run with this initiative? Otherwise, they will think you are the person who's going to do all the work, and they won't feel as comfortable discussing updates with me. Usually a supervisor will say, yes, I would love for you to kick off. And then if you go astray, invite your supervisor to rescue and chime in as needed. Let's say it is not your meeting to be the first voice. You could be the person who at least responds first to the first question. So you tell your supervisor, when the first question comes across, let me try to answer it first so that they realize I'm going to be the leader of this initiative, or that I'm on par with you, and see what your supervisor says. The supervisor might say, I only want you to observe this time, but that's rare. Most people want you to talk in the meeting. Otherwise, they would not have invited you. And if you're very confused on what your role is in that meeting, just ask your supervisor. I'm joining you for that meeting tomorrow. What do you want me to do in that meeting? And they would say, oh, I'd like you to introduce yourself at the beginning and explain that your role will be serving as the day-to-day person on this project. Let them tell you what they want your role to be. And remember, the roles that you can play, it could be that you're going to be the relationship owner, the expert in the room, the guide on the process, or you're going to be more of a consultant and advisor, or you're there to facilitate and ask thought-provoking questions. But that is something you could also ask. You could say, of these 5 roles, owner, expert, guide, facilitator, and consultant, how would you define my role in that meeting? Now, if it's not one of those 5, it's really not a good role because it's not a meaningful role in the meeting. Observer is not a meaningful role. And most organizations have a low appetite for people who like to play observer in meetings because you're not adding value. There's no demonstrated value that we see from an observer. Now, if after the meeting you created a summary of what you observed with suggestions for improvement, that's different because now you're playing more of a consultant. You're turning your observer role in that meeting into a consultant role after the meeting. That at least gives some value to why you were being quiet. But that's a rare role. We provide that for people when we come in and they want us to observe the dynamics in a meeting. We'll be quiet, but we always introduce ourselves at the beginning so people understand that we have a meaningful role, but we will not be talking, which helps them understand why we're not talking. You can also be assertive in the meeting discussion. Doesn't matter if it's your meeting or someone else's. Make sure that you are attending to the people who are speaking. That means looking at them, nodding, even the non word sounds of showing that you are listening and tracking with the people. Second thing you can be thinking about is amplifying the ideas you agree with. If you hear someone share an idea and you agree with it and you have a quick example to offer, you could do something like this. You could say, yes. And that's exactly what we did in the operations department at a previous customer, and they appreciated it. So, can you take the idea that was just shared, amplify it, and give one example? That's all you need to amplify that idea. That is assertive. Interrupting people is assertive. Now you're thinking, no, it's rude, but it's also assertive. If somebody is getting off track or derailing the conversation, even if it's a senior leader, can you interrupt and say, Michael, going back to what you said 30 seconds ago on X, and then ask a clarifying question? That's a very valuable interruption because it's helping people stay on track. Plus, it's showing you're listening and clarifying the conversation and a point that they just made. Another idea is take inventory of your body language. Could you be sitting up taller in your chair? Could you be using gestures more? Have your hands come out of the frame or under the table? Could showing your hands in a purposeful gesture help you look more assertive to the eye? I know it could. Now, at the end of the meeting, this is where you have an opportunity to have the last word. If it's not your meeting or you want your client to have the last word, give them the last word on purpose. The beginning and the end of a meeting are very important spots to the meeting where that person who begins or ends comes across as leading the meeting or being the person in charge. Sometimes that needs to be you, sometimes it should be another voice. Decide for yourself, do I need to be the one to have the last word? If you do, then make sure that, let's say, everything has been summarized in that meeting and you've ended with one valuable key point that you can say, all right, thank you, everybody, and adjourn by pushing back from the table if you're in person. Just that gentle push back from your seat highlights to people that the meeting is ending. Standing up ends the meeting as well in a very assertive fashion. If it's not your meeting, I'd go gentle with this one. Maybe you need to be the person who offers up the summary. So let's say a senior leader is closing, saying, thank you everyone for your time. Before we wrap up, let's summarize next steps. You could say, I've got them down. Let me rattle them off for everyone. Or here's what I have. And you share what those next steps are. That's something the associate could do in the room, the vice president could do in the room, a more junior title who hasn't spoken up as much could be doing that role for the team. And that's another way to demonstrate an increase in assertiveness. If you've received the feedback, you need to be more assertive. Work on a plan where you are asking, do I need to be assertive more in my voice, in my body, in my message structure, in my meeting participation, or in the way I handle questions? That's really important for you. If you've just received the feedback, be more assertive, that's not helpful until we find out exactly how does that person want to see you make a modification. I know they don't want you to do all of that. Because when somebody changes so dramatically and goes to an assertive voice, an assertive gesturing style, assertive eye contact, they're interrupting, they're guiding discussion, they're the first and last voice, they're handling questions very directly. It's too much. It's often so far from where they were that it becomes aggressive and not collaborative. And that is not what the person who gave you this feedback is looking for. So get very specific with them, and you could come back to them. Let's say they gave you this feedback a week ago. You can come back and say, Martha, you told me I needed, it would be great to be more assertive. I've thought about this a lot. Do you mean more assertive in my body, my voice, my meeting participation, the way I structure my messages, or how I handle questions, or or a few of these? And let them think about it, because they don't want you to do all of them, and you could choose the wrong one on accident. Okay. I share all of these ideas as a menu of options available to you for you to experiment with. It's nice to have all of these tools available where you get to decide, what do I want to use when? And it is experimentation, because I don't know who you're speaking to. And sometimes the person who gave you that feedback, they don't know all of your audiences. Your audiences may not all need this, but there may be a few where you need to be more assertive because you will get a better business outcome. Now, if you have been considering telling someone on your team that they could be more assertive, make sure you connect it to your dreams for their career path, plus the business outcomes you believe could be achieved if they were more assertive. And that will ensure that the conversation goes over well, and that your feedback is not only motivating, but sticky feedback as well. All right, see how much you can experiment with this week. Put it into practice, ask for feedback along the way, and you'll see some great results. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. If you are enjoying all of these lessons, but now you're hungering to turn all of this into skills and habits that make this work intuitive and natural so that you don't have to think about it, then you want to join Speak by Design University. That's our coaching program that gives you private coaching, group coaching with me, group training, self-paced learning, as well as exceptional networking with other people like you. This program is for managers and above, people whose careers are on fire and they're looking to hit their next level, and they want to do that sooner rather than later. Check it out at speakbydesign.com/join. That's speakbydesign.com/join, and you can start with us at the 1st of next month. We hope to see you there.